to Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays. This week, Ring has went 2.0, but you know what? We have a few suggestions, and we're going to talk about detecting landmines with a Raspberry Pi, using lasers, but unfortunately, no sharks.
Ubuntu gets another official flavor with Budgie, no less. And the Pocket Chip gets a nice update, which reveals more of their past sins than they probably intended to.
I usually don't like spin-off distro, but if it's about fixing SUS, certainly I'm all for it. And a few months after Linux 25th birthday, then it's Vim's turns to also turn 25.
All right, lads, why don't we just get into that and more? Starting out, it's somebody's birthday? What's this? What?
Vim.
Oh, get it away. Emacs Master Race.
So the venerable open source editor, which started on the Amiga 25 years ago, Vim, just has his birthday going, and it's still going strong. It's still widely used. It was a clone. Initially, it was a clone of the VI editor from Unix, and it was only for the Amiga. And over the years, it got ported on almost everything. It's now the de facto implementation of VI. I mean, particularly no one uses VI anymore. Pretty much all of it is Vim. So it went from something called VI imitation to something called VI improved. And it has improved over the years, all right. I use Vim all day. It's probably the software I use the most, and there's a good chance I might still use it in 25 years. There's nothing keeping me from switching to something else. It just had a new version out, Vim 8, a few months ago. I was just disappointed that it didn't get into Ubuntu 16.10, but I will blame Debian for that. And, Vim is something you get into if you really want to get into. I wouldn't push anyone to use it. I mean, it's kind of an acquired taste. But if you do want to get into Vim, I would suggest to read a lot of articles, to watch some videos. You can read some dot files, and if you want to read mine, you can check that out at github.com/strikor/dot-files.
All right.
Lots of them.
It's Vim we're talking about. I bet there's someone out there which, for 25 years, still has not figured out how to exit it.
I don't even know what you heathens are on about, man. Gedit Master Race, seriously. Vim's nice. Sometimes I might launch it in Emacs to go, no. But one thing I was definitely reading in this article from opensource.com is that, the primary developer and maintainer, it's one guy. So Strider is Vim Raptor bus proof.
Not totally, because there's another project going on, which is called NeoVim. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a fork. It's a rewrite/fork of Vim. It's a bit modernized, but a lot of the improvements that were available in NeoVim are also now available in Vim 8. So there's not a lot of reasons to go for NeoVim, but it's nice to have the options. So if Vim one day stops, we'll still have NeoVim.
Right on. So, Ring. New Beta 2 released with a multi-device and decentralized use. What is Ring? You never heard of it. It's a telephony group conferencey thingy on the Linux that I think runs in other operating systems who shall not be named. But yeah, it's the new business if you want to check it out. 2.0 brings a couple of new things, right?
Yep. And the biggest thing here is that they joined the GNUs.
GNU, it's become a new project now. I mean, it doesn't mean a lot, especially since the new foundation, they care more about freedom than they care about software quality. But it's still better than if they went for the Apache Foundation, which is usually where open source projects go to die. So, yeah, I mean, Ring still has a future. I mean, I expect a lot from this project, but the fact that it's a new project doesn't mean a lot. I mean, I hope that they have other plans for the future, and they really want to push it as a solid Skype alternative, because it surely can be one.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at this, going through it. Now, we have tried, I know Pedro has suffered one of my long suffering partners.
We've been trying.
Anything but Skype. Let's get off of it. And that's why we don't ask anymore. It's like, do you have a solution? Because it's always the same things that don't necessarily work. And it'd be great if they managed to fix some things, right?
Yeah, those teeny tiny niggling issues, especially considering our setup isn't exactly straightforward, as it were. It's convoluted, and that's still being nice. So we are trying to find a way to at least unify the audio and the video. So if we can have both of those, we won't put as big a strain on Ven's box, and that's probably for the best.
Yeah, I mean, until Zen comes out, don't let me down on that AMP, please. There's a couple of things I think Ring needs to focus on, because here's the thing. Web-based, which this is Electron, group conferencing, video solutions are a dime a dozen. What we don't have is something kind of geared towards what we're doing, which is just podcasting. We're not the only ones looking to get off Skype, not just on Linux, on Windows, on Mac, you name it. And I just had a little bit of just a couple of words I wanted to say, kind of a list, because things that need to happen for Ring to become viable, for us anyway, would definitely be able to run more than one instance at a time without any type of moon magic, so we can set up separate audio syncs. That would be good. Separate the video windows. Let them pop out, just the video windows. And don't, for the love of flying spaghetti monster, put the pop-up overlay crap when you mouse over it, because that requires another layer of transparency to block that crap out. Mix in proper echo cancellation, and maybe a few dashes of allowing us to nuke AGC from orbit, which is 9,000% possible on Chrome and Foxfire. Call me if you need help. And, if you do that, you might get a smaller group of people like us who will love your product and tell other people to use it. But I think, Strider, what do you think about this? I'm going to continue this sentence until I'm done with it, so you're more than welcome to keep trying, buddy. What do you think is, I think the biggest problem with any system like this is grandma doesn't use it.
Yes, it is. But I think, were you implying that Ring used Electron? Because that's not the case. I mean, Skype is, but not Ring.
Sure about that? Because I remember trying the Ring thing.
Listen, I'm not going to take the Pepsi challenge with that, but from memory, like I said, we've tried 1 billion of these. I think the audio sync on Ring shows up as a Chrome instance.
We'll have to check this out. Yeah. But I mean, we're used to saying things wrong on the show, so
yeah, it's par for the course, I guess. And we do this live if you would like to watch us. But yeah, it's if I'm not misremembering, Ring is in fact an Electron framework app. It did have an option that would let you use like stereo input audio. So if you have a stereo mic like this AT2020, the T Brown Memorial microphone, if you have one of these, you can actually use like stereo audio input and a couple of other options which weren't available in other Electron Frame apps. So that alone, they were already doing something very well. But if this isn't an Electron Frame app, just call me out on it. Say I'm wrong.
Okay, what's up next?
Up next, well, it's KDE Plasma Mobile, and OMG Ubuntu poses the question: the Linux phone you've been waiting for? Betridge's law of article headlines tells us that any article which ends in a question mark can safely be answered as no, and it shines in this particular example because, yes, this is a Plasma's or KDE's attempt to provide a combined experience between the phone and the PCs. Say if you want to take your phone with you and it's just like a regular phone, it would work as a regular phone would. But say you got home, you plugged it into a dock, and you would get the full PC experience. Maybe that's where they're going, maybe not, we don't really know. But they do have the Plasma Mobile image to allow you to at least try the phone implementation right now. In certain select devices, you can't use them in all Android devices as is to be expected. And sensationalist headline aside, the Ubuntu Phone, Firefox Mobile, Sailfish OS, and others have fallen very short of the mark. I mean, even iOS at this point, which was the market leader at the turn of the decade, it's now dwindling. And I'm all for competition. I am. But how is this going to compete with Android? If Plasma Mobile had support for the Play Store, assuming Google would be willing to play ball to avoid the whole monopoly lawsuit thing coming, maybe it has a chance, but they don't talk about that. They don't talk about it at all. They just say, oh, it's an operating system for your phone. So you're starting a new platform with no third-party support at this point. At the end of 2016, you're just throwing money down the drain.
Yeah, look, it's not that complicated. If you want to gain some kind of market share, make a phone that can run both Android and Linux apps, and then you have some chance of getting some users, because otherwise it won't happen. I mean, you have a very little chance to gain some users. And the Ubuntu phone did have some plans to do that, and I think it was in 2011, something like that. They had plans to make their platform work with both Android apps and Linux apps. And, to be honest, I don't see myself using Linux apps on a phone. I don't see this conversion being that useful for day-to-day use. I like my Linux apps to be on a 27-inch screen with my Cherry MX keyboard, and my phone to have phone apps. I mean, I'm okay with my Android phone right now.
It's because you can't see the future, man. You can't see the big picture. Definitely, I think this is something that is neat. I think it's more of a research project than they're really trying to turn out, something that would be commercially viable. And, I think currently this is about as usable as our current generation of virtual reality headsets. Because, it's about 10 years out from being one of those neat little moon devices that they show, oh, you can just take this out and put it in your little docket, then you have your full desktop computer. And you're like, but Van, that's not what the project is about. And I was like, yeah, but that would be the only viable use for a project like this. So, cool, neat, but, it's not a Nexus laptop, man.
Yeah, but you can get a Nexus laptop if you want. If you have one of those old Nexus 7 from 2012, then you can very easily turn it into a Ubuntu laptop by just flashing an image of Ubuntu 13.04, which is strangely not an LTS, which is something that is not supported anymore, but it's the only version apparently that is currently supported on the tablets. And this is not Ubuntu Touch, which I had tried on the Nexus 7. This is the full-on Ubuntu OS with Unity meant for desktops. And one nice thing is that it uses some kind of Bluetooth case with the keyboard integrated and all of this, which you can get on Amazon for $20 instead of $80, which is the regular price. Yeah, I'm interested in that because I do have a Nexus 7. It's slow as hell. I mean, it's almost unusable at this point. And it's very strange because it was really great when I bought it. I even downgraded the version of Android to the version it was shipped with, and it's still slow. So I really want to try this. No, I tried everything. I tried Cyanogen, I tried Android 5. Like, pretty much everything is still slow. I blame the apps, not the system. So yeah, I will maybe try this. I will get that cheap Bluetooth keyboard and try put it in that Ubuntu image on it. This seems really interesting.
Yeah, I guess the only real advantage here, and I read the article and then I started reading the comments, and I saw a bunch of nostalgia-afflicted people on the on the comments saying, "Oh, the netbooks, they were great." I mean, I know, I got one right here. I used it for a long, long time, and I used an Asus EEE 1005HA before that, and I loved netbooks. I did, especially these old ones, since you could actually open and you pull this panel and you could have like a proper hard drive or even a proper SSD instead of the eMMC flash drives that the netbooks nowadays, they don't call them that anymore. But yeah, no, those eMMC flash drives are just... Ugh. But yeah, no, it would be great to say have like one of these things with a proper resolution, because the screen on this one is like 1024 by 600. So the Nexus 7's got it beat right there, but you're still dealing with an ARM sort of netbookish type
it's
thing.
an ARM.
Yeah, I mean,
But it's good hardware.
it's definitely a thing. I mean, it's old hardware. I don't know. I was kind of like nonplussed because I was like, oh, Hackaday, really? You just did a whole article about fusing a Bluetooth keyboard with the Nexus 7 with some duct tape. And I was like, ta-da, it's a hack. The Linux, hold on. I mean, it's a bit tricksy. I've been bootstrapping Linux on Arcos products, and so I think the Arcos 7 and the Arcos 8 and maybe the Arcos 9. It's an experience. I guess this is kind of neat if you want to play with it. And yeah, netbooks, man, those were really neat when they came out. Then they came out with tablets, and you're like, net what? Yeah. So that is the future. But Ubuntu has something else going on with it.
Yes, I guess this is the biggest bit of news coming from the Linux community is Ubuntu gets yet another official Linux flavor. And this one comes with the Budgie desktop. What is the Budgie desktop? Never heard of it. It's the desktop environment that Solus uses. It's actually being developed by the same people. And someone had the brilliant idea of, let's create another Ubuntu spin with the Budgie desktop. But then at least they went whole hog and said, you know what, since we're already putting work into this, let's make it official. And they did. So when 1704 comes out, the very first official release of Ubuntu Budgie will be available for download.
Now answer me this. Do you think they could do a Solus remix of Budgie?
They already do.
Then they could make another version on top of that.
Well, they do have another version, but it's with Mate.
Ah, sounds pretty cool. The only thing, I looked at that and it listed it a full heartfelt need? Question mark. Nothing wrong with it, but one thing I'm terrified of, and I was reminded of this earlier this week, because it was like, oh my God, what's your desktop? What distribution is that? And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? What do you mean distribution? Yeah. It's like XFCE4. And I'm like, what? What distribution's that? And I was like, okay, people, you need to know that you can run Hannah Montana Linux and make it look like anything you want. But Strider hates that. He reinstalls. He doesn't install a new desktop. Nay, he installs a new distribution every time he switches.
No, I pretty much hate installing distributions. This is like my least favorite thing to do. But sometimes I do install like a new distribution to test things to have a different environment. But I've installed OpenSUSE a couple times and I had a really bad time. But there comes a new people in town called Gecko Linux. And their goal is to provide polished and out-of-the-box usability on the desktop for OpenSUSE. And I very much approve of this message because man, OpenSUSE needs some fixing because, yeah, all the problems I had, and it feels very, very rough.
Welcome to the club.
I mean, it looks great. I do love OpenSUSE, but I have so much trouble, and that it has become one of my least favorite distros. I like what they're doing, and it makes OpenSUSE good. And yeah, I mean, I have installed it in a VM. It looks really good. The choice of applications that they ship with is really smart. I've noticed they ship with VLC, Clementine, a bunch of other stuff. They ship with good font rendering, which is something that is missing in SUSE. They're doing the right thing. And this is SUSE like it should be. So don't install SUSE, install Gecko Linux. But please note that if you go with what they call rolling release, otherwise known as tumbleweed, you will have a bad time regardless. Yeah, pretty much the same thing as Arch. So go with the stable one, go with what is Leap, and you will have a very good distribution.
So what you're saying is Gecko Linux is basically the Linux Mint of what Linux Mint used to be to Ubuntu a couple of years back.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I guess if you're going to make another distro that's based on something else, you might as well fix one that already exists and provide a better experience. When Mint came along, it sort of gave Ubuntu a kick in the butt. So they would get their butts in gear and actually start paying attention to the OS. And then they introduced Unity, and for some reason, a lot of people seem to like it. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about, you may remember last week we had Jordan Svung, our co-host from Linux Gamecast Weekly. He was on the show.
Don't remind me, man. Don't remind me.
And he was... he mentioned that even with the new Steam beta update, he wasn't able to use the DualShock 4 with the Steam Big Picture mode to configure it, to do all the special configurations like you would do on a regular Steam controller. Steam introduced that, but it wasn't working on his end. So I did a little digging, and I found this, which is, I guess, our gaming news for the week, which is, if you... there'll be a link in the show notes, don't worry about it. If you copy-paste those lines there, it basically sets the USB subsystem to read and write whenever you plug in the DualShock, or whenever the system sees the DualShock 4 is plugged in, it will set that to read-write. It'll give you 666 permissions. At all.
Pick up sticks.
Yeah, and you can actually then use Steam Big Picture mode to set all the pretty configurations that it now allows, which is kind of awesome. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a PS4 controller, but it's always good to have more support for different hardware.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I was surprised at... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to have like pretty much every controller supported, like whether it is PS4, Xbox One. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's good stuff.
Yeah, as I was just saying, I'm almost genuinely surprised it didn't work out of the box. But hey, man, learn some UDEV rules and your life will be better. Now, this last story is not our Electron story of the week. Nay, it is our Windows story of the week, because every now and then we can sit back and point our fingers and go, ha ha. But, you know, we are AMD fanboys who all have running NVIDIA GPUs, but... No, man, apparently some people had some tinfoil hat put on their head organs because the NVIDIA was stealing your information and killing your children and saying disparaging remarks about your mom. No, but they were tracking you just a bit with, you know, what's that BS term? The metadata, you know? Just a little bit of that, a little bit of this. Totally does not affect us, so... I just wanted to throw this in because when I read that, I was like, oh, we have to go to our AMD and watch that. And they were having a field day with it. And I was like, yeah, let's head over to our NVIDIA. We're talking about their edits. It was amazing. watching true NVIDIA fanboys explain how it's like, no, this is totes okay, man. I'm like, Google collects your information. Everything collects your information, man. It's fine. Using that as an example. I was like, that's a horrible example. And you would collectively have lost your shite if it was an AMD driver doing this. You'd be like, yeah, NVIDIA doesn't do this, and that's horrible. But it was just kind of fun to watch that go down this week.
Yeah, this is limited to the GeForce Experience, which is not available on Linux.
Okay, now that does irritate me. I feel bad for our Windows brother and the ones forced to, run Windows and there's no option. Maybe they're just stuck in a place where they can't. Because first NVIDIA came out and they're like, we're going to need that email, right? And you're like, fine, here's your email. Then NVIDIA's like, and, somewhere buried in that EULA, there was like, yeah, we're going to collect data on you. Like, Steam does it too, but Steam does it. Steam's like, yeah, we're collecting your data. What's the deal? You would never expect that behavior from a driver. It kind of irked me. I was like, NVIDIA, people bought a product here. Your drivers shouldn't really be a service, right? To
be fair, it's not. You can still install even the Windows driver. You can still install it and not send them the telemetry data. Mm-hmm. It's just if you install the GeForce Experience to get like drivers, the game-ready drivers as they call them, whenever a new game is released, they release a new driver version. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah, and it's enabled by default. And yeah, you have to go out of your way to disable that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if it's makes people using Windows want to switch to Linux, then this is a very good thing.
Maybe that will be a thing, but let's not worry about disable. Let's talk about the people who enable us to make this nightmare fuel every week. That's right, 2 episodes a week. You get a gaming episode and you get your regular Linuxy news. We 87 Patreons kicking in 150 wet stinky caches, so that's pretty cool. Check it out. We have some rewards for people who want to help us out. You can get early access to our VOD, some gaming series we do, how-tos, and just general fun stuff. Hey, man, there are even rewards for Chicago being particularly cool. I mean, I like that. And if that's not your dice, scream over to linuxgamecast.com, hit that support button. We got some PayPal, some Amazon links on there. It's a bit brilliant, but that's enough shilling. Hopefully you'll find some value in the show. Maybe you're watching live like, hey, man, I'll help these guys out. Buy them a non-alcoholic beverage unless it's Saturday. Then you buy us liquor. And it'll be brilliant. We do appreciate everyone's support. But coming up next, we're going to talk to the man with the cisgendered male behind MusicBrainz. Yes, that's right. Freso, up next.
And joining us tonight is a very special guest. His name is Frederik Olesen, and he's from MetaBrainz. Say hi to the lovely people.
Hello.
Yes. So he'll be joining us for a teeny tiny interview.
What's your problem, man? I mean, he demanded. Not only did he demand like this bowl of only brown M&Ms, but he can only be referred to as Freso through the entire interview.
Yes. Freso, however you prefer to spell it, I guess. But yeah, we do have some questions for you, Freso. So if you want to start us off.
Yeah, man, because I heard yesterday you were on Floss Weekly and they asked you for a 30,000-foot view of just what the heck a MetaBrainz is. So can you give me a 31,000-foot view of this?
The 31,000-foot view is that MetaBrainz is amazing.
Okay, all right. You got to work on this. Okay.
Oh, damn it.
Now let's say that we need an elevator pitch. I'm like, okay, explain to me.
All right.
What is this?
MetaBrainz is a foundation that hosts a number of different open source, open data projects. Most famously, MusicBrainz, which is a huge open data metadata database about music. So we have a lot of different facts about music, which is all user edited, like Wikipedia. So anybody can come in and enter all the data about their favorite artists and all their favorite albums, etc., etc. And we also have a bunch of other projects. ListenBrainz, which is meant to be an alternative to Last.fm, just open source, open data. And AcousticBrainz, which is meant to be a repository of acoustic data about music, which can be used for a lot of different interesting analysis and research. A lot of universities are using Acoustic Brains, and it's actually being co-developed with in partnership with a university here in Barcelona. And we have, oh my God, we have Book Brains, which is meant to be kind of like Music Brains, but for books and literature. We have Critique Brains, which is an open repository of critiques, reviews about music, about concerts, where basically all the reviews in Critique Brains are under some Creative Commons license, so anybody else can go and use the reviews for what they want to use it for, as long as they adhere to the Creative Commons licenses. And we have, oh my God, we have so many projects. We have MusicBrainz Picard, which is a music file tagger. So you can tag all your legal downloads from iTunes and Bandcamp and all your legal CD rips with data from MusicBrainz using MusicBrainz Picard. And we have, oh my God, I can't even remember all our projects.
Well, don't worry about it, because we have compiled a beautiful list of questions that we shall grill you.
All right. All right.
Yeah. So you specifically, what do you do for MetaBrainz?
I am the community manager, which basically means that I sit and watch the community and interact with the community in various ways. Yes, I spend a lot of time watching our forums. I spend a lot of time on IRC. I spend a lot of time reading emails from people complaining about other people.
And unfortunately, part of that is when some yahoos ask you to be on their show, you're kind of the sacrificial lamb they toss out.
Exactly.
You go.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah,
I was looking at the MetaBrainz website, and there's a little banner down the middle that shows the different Brains' databases.
Right.
Is there like in between the team, is there a lot of overlap of people who take care of those, or is there like a dedicated team for each one?
There's quite a bit of overlap.
All right.
If you go to the on the MusicBrainz website, the MetaBrainz website, you can see up in the About there's a subsection called Projects, where you will actually have all the projects listed.
Oh, I see. All right.
Clever girl.
So a bit more specific,
so
you
that's all the
actually mentioned MusicBrainz earlier, and so if I go to MusicBrainz, I won't be able to find download links to the songs, just direct download links. It'll just show me like the metadata, the artists, the album it was part of, the entire song list of the album. It doesn't really give you a download link for the songs, right?
Yes and no. We don't have any music stored on MusicBrainz. We don't have the actual music stored, but we do have links to, say, iTunes, to Bandcamp.
Oh, all right.
A few cases where we have links to Spotify, to Google Play. I think we even have a couple. I think Microsoft has a music store as well.
Oh, they do, and they wouldn't put us on their Zune store. It's miserable. I applied twice.
So we do have links to download and stream services, but we don't have any of the music on any of MetaBrainz's servers itself.
But I think what he was kind of dancing around was just saying you guys aren't linking to torrents, which is a good thing, right?
Right, exactly. We do have a couple of links to like mega.nz and such, but that's because the artists actually use those sites to distribute the music themselves. So,
right, doesn't Strider have
so Strider, do you have some questions?
Yeah. So you talked a few months ago about a database for video games. So how is that project going? Is there any progress on that? Is this still a thing?
It's never actually been a thing. It's like a pipe dream. We hope someday we'll be able to do it. someone who used to be a more active member of the community is actually kind of having an open video game database project of his own, which I know you know about because you're in the ISC channel for it as well. But I think that's standing pretty still, and I don't think there are any Brains project about video games or any kind of games coming up anytime soon, because we pretty much have our hands full with the projects we already have. But if anyone would like to make a video game Brains, we would love to have it. But
yeah, well, you do also do some work for Lutris. You managed the Arch package for Lutris, so that's really cool. But I was wondering, maybe Lutris could make an open database for games and become some kind of video game Brains. I don't know. I mean, if it's possible.
I've been having that thought myself. As you say, I'm also somewhat involved with the Lutris project, so it's definitely been on my mind. Especially because you're also we are already compiling a lot of data about Lutris, and I think before I became the Lutris package manager for Arch, my main interest in Lutris was actually becoming one of the administrators for the site and getting all the entering a bunch of data about the games and entering data about games into the Lutris games database.
Now, this might come as a little bit of an aside, but I got to ask you, or the Arch couple murdered me in my sleep. What is it like being a package maintainer for Arch?
It's pretty easy. I mean, every 2 weeks with the new Lutris release schedule, I basically change a single digit in the package, and then I run a couple of commands, and then it's done. So that's fairly painless.
Pretty sweet.
All right.
So another question, not related to video games this time, but about Picard. So Picard, MusicBrainz Picard is one of my all-time favorite programs. And it's written in Python. So I was wondering, is there anything I can help to make it better? Or like, I don't have a lot of time to spend on it, but maybe there are some bite-sized bugs I could help fix, or I don't know, maybe some small things I can help with, or not just me, but all the people listening who like Picard, who use Picard, because it's very good.
Well, we have a bug tracker that's open, like most other open source projects has. We have kind of a way to categorize bite-sized tasks, but we're not very good at using that categorization. So I think the best thing is for people to come on ISC and say, hey, we're really interested about Picard, and we've looked around the bug tracker and we couldn't find anything that was very easy to get started with. Can anyone please direct me to something? Another thing is, can I talk about the Google Coding now?
Well,
Sure.
That was what I was going to ask you about next, if you wanted to share what MetaBrainz would be doing with Google Coding. Right.
The Google Coding is actually speaking about these bite-sized tasks. Google Coding is all about these small tasks, and we're going to have some for Picard as well. But Google Coding is a program by Google. Mm-hmm. I wonder how Google got in the name of that.
We get it. Move on.
Never mind. Anyway, it's meant for 13 to 17-year-old pre-university students to get introduced into open source and open source development. And MetaBrainz is one of the organizations who got accepted into the Google Coding this year,
All right.
which we're very excited about. It's going to be our second year with the Google Coding. There are also 16 other organizations. KDE and the Wikimedia Foundation comes to mind. So even if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, I'm in the perfect age range and I would love to be part of this, but MusicBrainz or MetaBrainz isn't the one true open source project for me. There are a bunch of others, so just check it out. Yes, so we will have a bunch of small tasks that should be doable in between an hour and 6 hours of work, depending on your background and depending on the specific task. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be one of the mentors, and we are going to have 2 or 3 of the high-ranking students from Google Coding last year be mentors. The 2 grand prize winners from MetaBrainz' Google Coding participation last year are going to mentor. And basically all tasks will have 1 to 3 mentors that will help the student accomplish this task.
So what is it like with the code-in far as the application process? How do you go about doing this? Is it too late, or is it something there's still time for?
There is still plenty of time. The Google Coding opens for students on November 28th. Mm-hmm. So it's not even started yet for students. For me, as organization administrator, the Google Coding is very much on right now, because we are sitting and entering a bunch of tasks to be ready for the students to claim on the 28th. But for students, it's basically just go to the Google Coding website. Mm-hmm. And start digging in on November 28th, and it's November 28th until January 30th, 18th, middle of January.
So is there a physical location that people will have to go to, or can they do everything online?
Everything is online. It's for students all over the world except for US embargoed countries, because Google can't really is still operating within US law, mm-hmm. So it can't really do things with people in US embargoed countries. But basically, the whole anywhere in the world is up for participating, as long as you're within 13 and 17 years old and you're not yet enrolled in university.
Okay, I think that's almost it, but we want to let everyone know that you can find this project at MetaBrainz with a Z, because it's edgy.org. And check out their projects. There's a bunch of neat stuff going on over there. But before we close this out, we don't want to take up all of Freso's time. Pedro, we do have one question we like to ask and get answered. The real reason he's here. Yes. And what would that be?
Well, our usual question is, what is your favorite recipe for preparing a grilled cheese sandwich?
I don't really have one. I guess I would just put some cheese on a sandwich and grill it.
Really? You
Really?
I don't really eat that many grilled cheese sandwiches, so so it's not really something I've spent a lot of time exploring.
Hey, don't worry about it. Any answer is a good answer, because there's no wrong answer. But that is going to wrap this business up. Coming up next, Slice of Pie.
And a big thank you to Freso for joining us for that little talk we had. But before we wrap things up, we like to gather up all the ARM Raspberry Pi type news into a teeny tiny segment we've taken to calling the Slice of Pie. And this week, we start off with the Pocket Chip, which brings graphical acceleration and doubles available storage. Now, that might sound a bit odd, because, so it's a self-contained thing. How are they just doubling the available storage? Well, it turns out what this update does, because they apparently were having issues with the
all right, man.
MLC.
We're just watching this video. I want to know what type of creepy things they're doing with poor Mr. Teddy Ruxpin back there.
It's just there. It's just one of those things you're not supposed to question. But the big thing is, you can see in the video, they're playing some Quake 3 in the Pocket Chip. Pretty awesome. And I will probably, I'm willing to forgive the lack of proper hardware acceleration up until now, since that can be a sticky subject, even with mainstream ARM boards like your Raspberry Pis. But when I started digging into the why they doubled the storage, the available storage, it turns out they had a issue with the SLC driver, or specifically the MLC NAND driver, as in they weren't using it. They were using the SLC driver, which only supported 4 gigabytes of internal storage, and it made everything considerably slower. So they were effectively kneecapping the system storage previously. I mean, why? Why would you do that? I genuinely want to know. If anyone from the Pocket Chip team is watching or listening,
probably because their manufacturer were like, "Listen, we already got this right here. Do you want this or not?"
Yeah, it's still a pretty young project. I mean, it takes time to get optimized and everything, but this is one less reason to underestimate the power behind a 1 gigahertz.
Here he goes.
ARM chip, because this is a totally able system. I mean, I always see those people that are kind of amazed that this kind of system can run 2D games or stuff that we could run 15 years ago when we had that kind of power in our computers. We could run 3D games back then. Why not run them today on this kind of hardware today? I mean, it makes sense, right? This might also give me a reason to get one. If there is 3D acceleration, I mean, this will make a very good system for gaming, like a portable console or anything. I mean, I'm genuinely interested into getting one now.
All right. So this is a fun little project that is just straight up detecting landmines with spinach. So they're rolling out, they're putting some plants that, with spinach, and they're, nomming on the soil, and they're going to hit that plant with a laser. Okay. Then they're going to use the light that bounces off, and they're going to use a Pi to read it with an infrared camera, providing a map of the landmine locations. Only making me question really 2 things. One, where's the shark in that? Because you can't have, laser without a shark. And B, probably not the best idea to be planting edible, because I know landmines are a serious issue in some countries. I mean, thousands of uncleared landmines. You don't want to put something growing that somebody goes, nom? Hashtag blam.
Yeah, I guess they could technically carry them around, because according to Professor Michael Strano, or Strano, however you spell his last name, I never know, you could use it to detect virtually anything. He says the plants could be used for defense applications, but also to monitor public spaces for terrorism-related activities, since we show both water and airborne detection using this particular technique. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's actually pretty good.
I mean, it would be cheaper, not cheaper maybe, but they could also just plant the spinach and release some cows or some sheep, and they will find the mines, I guess. I mean, it's not very nice for you.
You're just a sadist, man. I can see Strider standing out there setting his grill up. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, just give it time, man. Just give it time.
There we go. Here comes dinner. Boom.
Okay. 64-bit Orange Pi slips in under $20. What is it? Well, let's see. Open Orange Pi. It's a PC running. What's the big deal about this? It's got a 64-bit SoC. That's kind of cool, and it's 20-watt sneaky cache. I'm just going to be honest. I used to do board design for a company that's no longer. That looks like some crazy stuff I laid out. It's just a bit.
Yeah, it's like they were playing fast and dirty with the PCB placement of certain modules.
That's what you do when you want to save money, actually, because you save on traces as opposed to having moving. I was like, no, just tilt everything that way and it'll definitely work. But Strider hates freedom, therefore he hates 64-bit SoCs, but it only supports 1 gigajoule of RAM, so What's
Yeah, I mean, there's a little point of running a 64-bit OS on that amount of RAM. If it had 4 gigabytes of RAM, then okay, you need to run a 64-bit OS. But on that amount of RAM, it will mostly have a negative effect on the system because you need more RAM to run applications. I mean,
well, I'm looking at
sense.
this. I mean, it's got 3 USB 2.0 and GPOs power. I think this is networking, 10-1000, HDMI, AV, mic input, camera interface. This is, I think, targeted not necessarily for the home user, but for companies looking to make some type of set-top box for,
And even just prototyping. This is considerably cheaper than the Raspberry Pi, although... unlike the Raspberry Pi, you're not dealing with ARM or the Raspberry Pi Foundation directly. You're dealing with, what is it? It uses an all-winner SoC, and it's being distributed by AliExpress, which is Chinese.
Fascinating. Definitely something to play with. But before we get out of here, we like to talk to you, and we really like it when you talk back to us. Didn't we have a few people this week? Maybe send us a note.
Indeed. So if you have questions for us, or even for Freso, you can send us some feedback by going over to linuxgamecast.com, hitting the contact button on the navbar, filling out the form. It's pretty easy. Just make sure you pick LWDW on a little drop-downy thing. Or if you want to send some hate mail for Linux Gamecast Weekly, that other show we do, you can do that too right there. Or, if you find this video on YouTube, leave us a comment. If you find it on Patreon, you're one of our awesome Patreons. You can leave us a comment there too. It's pretty easy to get in touch with us.
And definitely keep in mind, I mean, if you want us to get back to that comment, you use the first thing he told you.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way.
Nick has a little thing, man, and, I just wanted to include this. He says, I like the show, but it'd be nice if you put some links in the description so I can follow. Happy face. And you remember J-Man was on last week, Massive Sfag, and he said, hello, Seth Rogen. First of all, you're not the first person to say that. Unfortunately, that was about 2-3 years ago. Somebody had said that on Linux Gamecast Weekly, the other show we do.
Mm-hmm.
Curse that person, because once that clicked in my head, I was like, oh man, he does a, oh geez, now all I hear is Seth Rogen. Right, multiple times a week.
The question I'm asking is, why can't people spell Seth Rogen? I mean,
because it's actually spelled Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you say Rogan, but it's spelled R-O-G-E-N.
Yeah. Why
of course, it's a fake name, so who cares?
Man. But to the main part of the question, this is something I kind of want to point out, is if you're watching this on YouTube, this is an audio podcast. If you click on the description, there's a thing in there that says notes. So when you click on that, it'll take you to our web zone with all the notes, with all linky goodness that you can go back and follow along while playing the home game. It's a bit brilliant.
So all right, so last week we did mention that Martin Wimpress had done a little thing regarding the capturing of screen regions using Mir. Yes, that other display server that Canonical is developing. And he says, thanks for the promotion, but I'm not the head of anything. Well, that's not entirely true. You're still the head of Ubuntu Mate. But he says that Kevin Gunn is currently the manager of Mir and Unity 8. So if people want to follow him, he apparently, according to Martin, he posts some interesting stuff. As for the tool checking, because...
See, my first thought is like, we get him on the show. Then I was like, Martin would get in between that and be like, nope.
But yeah, you may remember, I can remember if it was Strider or Jordan, who brought up the fact that there were a bunch of checks to make sure SED and a bunch of other basic tools of Linux were included. Now, he said, as for the tool checking in Mir capture, yes, it is a little excessive, but Mir is used for digital signage on embedded systems, not just Ubuntu devices. For this reason, I can't be sure what tools are available, so made the checks as detailed as possible. I was somewhat surprised to hear Jordan criticize that level of sanity checking, given how quickly he lambasts those who are not as thorough and release flaky software. Smiley face.
Yeah, but it was me initially who noticed that there was these checks, and I don't like sanity checking. I like chaos. But yeah, if it's meant for embedded systems, it makes sense that.
Which was the example I used.
Well, fortunately, if things keep going to plan, we'll never have to worry about Unity on embedded systems, lads.
Oh, and by the way, I've reported a few bugs against Unity 7 just in case you get bored. And yeah, I'll just give you some work to do on that.
Okay, so this last little bit comes from Mir. Speaking of Mir, it's like, wrong. So we're talking about what, Internet Explorer, Pedro?
Yes.
Okay.
I made the claim last week, wrongly, very much so, that the original version of Safari used a Trident engine.
And, you know, here at Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, we're just like the Lannisters. We throw Pedro under the bus.
Every chance.
It never used the engine. It was using the KHTML engine and was based on Conqueror and ended up becoming WebKit. Nothing other than Internet Explorer used the Trident engine. Make sure you effing know. Oh, language mirror. What you're talking about before mouthing off with assurance when you have Jordan is telling you grammar mirror, you are wrong, comma. Matthew also saying you are wrong in a French way, comma, which I agree with you on that one, Mir. And people in the IRC yelling at you.
Yes, I was wrong. I have absolutely no shame.
What are you talking about, man? You and Mir went at it for like 45 minutes during a Saturday show.
But on Saturday we did have a talk, and I explained why I was wrong, because it's been a while since I looked into the story of OS, like Mac OS and OS X, and the first few versions of OS X, and like from Mac OS 8.1 or 8.2, the default browser that came, if you didn't pick any of the alternative options, the default browser that you would get was actually the Internet Explorer for Mac. And that's where my brain went like, oh, so that Trident is used in Safari. No, I was wrong. I was wrong, and I am sorry.
Strader, what's it feel like being right, man?
Yeah, and we have to make sure also not to say that Netscape was using the Trident engine, because it wasn't. Okay, Netscape was using the KHTML engine. We'll make sure to get it right next time. Thanks, Mir.
So I guess in closing, nerds. But that is going to do it for Linux Weekly Daily Wednesday. We shall return. If you do like this first time watching, we do a slightly more completely 100% unhinged show Saturday nights at 9:30 Eastern. Linux Gamecast Weekly if you tune in for that. But I've been Vin Stone. You can find me on the Twitter nets at Vin Stone, plus Vin Stone on the G+.
I am Pedro Mateos, and if you do tune in on Saturday, just remember there will probably a lot more booze involved. But you can find me at Unaccounted For on Twitter, or plus Pedro Mateos on Google+.
And you can find me on Twitter at Striker or on Google+ at Mathieu Commandant, and also everything related to Lutris.
Patreon.com/Lutris.
Lutris, yes. Right.
Plug your stuff.
We try, man. We try. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.